Everyone, and this is our belief, should have 30 to 40% of their asset that should be their properties, if not more.
If you have 1 million euros, they're going to pay you at least 6% of your investment yearly.
What would I expect to encounter on my journey towards purchasing a property? What would you advise me I should look out for?
With a significant low deposits, you can get a property that finances itself.
They say that the property where you live is a liability and the property that you rent is actually an asset.
So you give me 1 million euros, every year I'm going to give you 60,000 euros.
So we're not taking this step, buying into a property that is an income generating asset and that will bring capital appreciation.
David, welcome back to the investment journey. It has been, I think, almost 2 months since we first talked, and that was about commercial deals. So anybody who's listening now who's interested in commercial deals, especially in Portugal, David's your man. And we recorded an episode all about that a couple of months ago. You can find that on Spotify. But today we are going to be talking about some of the up and coming destinations in Portugal, which is super exciting. A couple of them I know quite well. One of them is one I do not. So firstly, David, how are you?
Good, Neil. How are you doing? Thanks so much.
I'm all good.
Really excited to be here with you. I think our first podcast went really well, and thank you for that. And I really suggest also anybody interested in commercial real estate and understanding a little bit better what Athena Advisor does, I really suggest you listen to it. And at least the last one you should listen. Let's see how this one rolls out, and then I'll suggest people to listen in or not. Let's see how this goes.
Well, I think this one, commercial deals, is a really great. It's part of a niche of the company, but it's a growing part of our company. And I know that there's a really great project in the works at the moment around Athena Commercial, but I think probably for our audience, in terms of how this one goes, hopefully it will also go well. These are some really exciting destinations. The first one of Ericeira is a place that I spent 3 or so months with this year, and it kind of really stole my heart. I think it's a really special place. The location is incredible. The energy around Ericeira, you can really feel that there's a buzz around it and that it's a place that's on the move. The term up and coming fits it very well. Madeira is our second destination, which is just a place of outstanding beauty. And it's I think when you go, you don't feel like you're in Europe anymore. It's probably the most unusual place in Europe, Madeira, in some ways, because it's so wild and vast and out there in the Atlantic Ocean. And then the final destination, I hear lots about through the team. I've not been able to visit it myself so far, Tavira, which we're going to talk about last. But maybe we can just start by jumping in to Ericeira. And Ericeira has been, we've kind of moved in there this year with a couple of exciting projects. But maybe we can start, David, by just introducing Ericeira as a destination, what you like about it, why you think it's a place that's got that stamp of approval from Athena Advisors.
So I have 2-3 things to tell you before we get into this, which is really exciting. First of all, I think the theme of us talking about destinations is something that really excites me, because I think Athena, one of our things that we do well is really promoting, launching these destinations that we're passionate about. So I think that's really one of the things that I love about this company, is that we do things out of our passion and not always thinking about the return we might have on the projects, but we fall in love with these places, and then we try to promote them and really sell them and explain to people just as it was for us, that we were going to be there, and that's the only way I can also work, So I think in private we've chatted this a couple times, Neil, that these destinations that sometimes we've launched developments in the past, like the Azores, and I was part of these developments, and these are always places that I'm passionate about. So I think it's a great theme. Great idea, and thank you, all of you guys, for coming up with this. So getting into your question, Ericeira, it's a one-of-a-kind place for me, and I think I go there once or twice on weekends every month. I know since the past 6 years, I've come back to São Paulo and now living in Portugal. It's really one of the coastal lines that I love to visit. I love to visit because my children, they love surfing there, you know, and I do some surfing, but not as much as they do. And one of my best friends live there. And this friend of mine, you know, we lived in San Diego for 6 years, me and a bunch of Portuguese guys, 5 other guys, from 91 to 97. And this friend of ours was the only one that went to live in Ericeira. And I think it's amazing because he's the one that we all gather. He has the smallest house of the 5 of us, but it's always where all of us hang out. Why? It's because Ericeira has this vibe that it's the place in Portugal that I go and I most feel like I'm back in California. So this is a really important, it has that atmosphere, those invisible things. You see beautiful people, everybody's in a surf mood. A lot of the time the sun is out there, it's shining, those beautiful cliffs, and it's great chatting with you, Neil, that you have been there and you have experienced this. But from all of Portugal, all of the islands, this is the place that I feel that I'm going a bit back home, because I consider also California a part of me since I was there for 6 years, and I really feel it in my DNA. So do you know what I'm talking about, Neil? This feeling of being in California, this presence, this vibe that me and my friends, we love to hang out there. And do you identify with what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I spent 3 months in California 11 years ago, driving down the Pacific 101. And when I got to Ericeira, it didn't initially dawn on me until I met a young guy from San Diego. Unbelievable surfer. I'm still a bit of an intermediate beginner. And I think he was born in Hawaii, went into the ocean on day one and surfed all his life in San Diego. So an incredible surfer. And we went out the first day that I met him for a sunrise surf in São Julio, I think it's called. It's about 5 minutes south of Ericeira, the town itself. And we got out on the water and we sat in one of the cafes there and looked and watched the rest of the sunrise. And he just said, I feel like I'm back home, but without all of the developments around. So as soon as he said that, it kind of grounded me into being like, yeah, I can feel that energy around this place. And I think for anybody who's, kind of any demographic, of any age, if you're interested in living in a coastal community, even without waves, if you take the waves away, it's a very unique place in that there's a local community there. You walk through the town centres and you walk down to the beaches and you see the Portuguese. And that is in some places in Portugal where they're tourist hotspots is more of a novelty. So it's a really grounded place that I feel, as well as having this topography and terrain that does really represent or reflect the European version of what California is. But I would go further to say that the culture there, the culture in California is an amazing lifestyle. It's a beautiful place. But I think that for me, the history of Ericeira and Portugal at large really kind of drew me further into that destination. And I think alongside that as well, you have, California is a mature destination in terms of the investment and so on it's had. But Ericeira is somewhere where it's got that really lovely mix of local people, but also a young demographic, people that are going and working in like WeWorks and remote working cafes and so on. And you can feel that energy and that buzz. So I'm kind of interested. I went for the first time in February and spent about 3 months there this year. How have you seen a change in Ericeira? You've obviously frequented it for the years before, and it feels like it's in this position where there obviously has to be some protection around that local culture still, but there is development happening in the area. So yeah, maybe you could tell me a little bit about how it was a few years ago, the change you felt and the excitement that draws for you.
Yeah, so Ericeira was always a spot known for surfers, but another thing was that the access, it was a little bit far. And I think what also has drawn a lot of traction, and for people that are now work in Lisbon, is that, there are a 45-minute freeway that drops me at the end of my door if I have a house in Ericeira. So this is great. I mean, you live in an amazing location. It's a world surf reserve, as you know. We'll get into a little bit more of that later on. But it's and you're 45 minutes from Lisbon. I live halfway between Lisbon and Cascais. I mean, I live probably 15 minutes without traffic, but it takes me 45 to 50 minutes to get to the office because I need to get this traffic. The people that come for Ericeira, we might leave the house at the same time and we will arrive here at the same time if we both drive simultaneously. So the access to Ericeira, it's good. So to respond to your question, not get carried away, this access has changed. It was a more Portuguese vibe, very surfer, more fisherman style. You continue to see this authenticity, but now you see a little bit more the international crowd coming in. You have these guys, big blonde hairs, and you have these beautiful American girls, and so it's that has changed. It's just the people that are frequenting this, and they're bringing a different vibe of internationality to the space, and a space where I think Portuguese people and international people are co-living and co-sharing this and getting very, getting together in a very nice way. So yes, this has changed, and I think also what we will see from now onwards is that that architecturally, what from the past Portugal has inherited in the past. For me, that coastal area could have been a mint design in terms of architecture. It could be great, but it has a couple things that I'm really not proud of our architecture, the way these things were approved in the past. But now, and even Athene is involved on the future of Ericeira, which we will see, these great international firms will come in and they will design these amazing spots that are really integrated in those coastal areas, and we will see this shortly. These projects, it's a reality. I'm involved in a couple. They're still a little bit in the confidentiality mode, but in the next 1 or 2 years, we will have this in the Ericeira coast, and I think this will even change for the better the feeling we have when we are in Ericeira.
It's amazing what good waves can do to a place, isn't it? And it's more than just good waves. They are world-class waves, and they're attached to a very interesting cultural community as well. And I think for Portugal in general, when Nazaré, I think it was in 2012, I can't quite remember the name of the guy right now.
McNamara.
Yeah, McNamara. He had a friend said, come out and surf this big wave, and he got there and realised it wasn't a big wave, it was a mountain. It put Portugal on the map. And if anybody who doesn't quite know the geography, I mean, there's great waves from Sagres all the way up into Porto and beyond. The west coast of Europe is blessed with the Atlantic winter swell, but Portugal in particular, you have Lisbon, Cascais, Ericeira, Peniche, Baleão, and then Nazaré. So all along that coast, it's not just if you're somebody who's looking for a outdoor active lifestyle and surfing is your thing. It's not just Ericeira that you have, and I think there's something like 7 breaks in a 4-kilometer radius, and it's just to the north of the town is where the World Surf Reserve starts. But within a 40-minute drive, you have access to, you can surf all day, any day of the year. And that is a really unique thing because I'm from the UK and we have a few breaks down in the southwest. It's not always on. It's generally colder water. The waves aren't as good. So places like Portugal, now they've become on the map. It's becoming quite a paradise. And I just want to get into the World Surf Reserve a little bit because it's this it's fairly new. It's from a coalition called Save the Waves. And yes, Ericeira is the first and only World Surf Reserve in Europe. We do have North Devon now in the United Kingdom, but thank you to Brexit, we are no longer classified as Europe. But just to give an idea of how highly regarded Ericeira is, these are the other 11 destinations that hold the World Surf Reserve status, which I'll explain in a minute about exactly what that is. But we have Bahia de Todos Santos in Baja, Mexico. We have the Gold Coast in Australia. We have, and you might kill me for my pronunciation of this because it's a Brazilian destination, Guarda do Embau.
Guarda do Embau, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's better. Thank you. Juancho, Peru. Malibu, California. Manly Beach, Australia. Noosa, Australia. Santa Cruz, California. Punta de Lobos, Chile. Playa Hermosa, Costa Rica. And then North Devon, the United Kingdom. The least tropical and exciting one of the bunch. But nonetheless, these are all iconic destinations. And if you were to look at real estate in some of these destinations as well, you would see the effect that lifestyle and property, the relationship that they have. That people that are looking for beautiful properties often coexist alongside beautiful lifestyle. And I spoke in the last podcast with Neve about this, which is still Ericeira specific, but maybe Ericeira is in some ways one of the greatest examples of Athena's general approach to property. We sell beautiful properties and we help advise on beautiful properties, but all of those beautiful properties is tied into lifestyle. And how I see it, and the more I've been speaking through this podcast to the team, the more I've realized that actually what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide access to people to this lifestyle because we believe in this lifestyle. You know, you yourself talk about it. You go up to Ericeira often. I'm back and forth from Ericeira or the French Alps if I can be. So maybe as we're talking about Ericeira, which is one of those destinations where the lifestyle for people that are interested in surfing in particular is so fantastic. You can talk a little bit about how important lifestyle is to the properties that we sell in terms of Athena's ethos.
Yes, how they. I really like the way that you said how things coexist. You know, they're together. These beautiful spots with the real estate, with our lifestyle. You know, as you're explaining, you know, this all coexists together. You know, but I think it also, you know, it seems like these beautiful areas, but there's also we also should look at the investment side for people that are maybe thinking of coming over and buying these properties, and also it is a great investment, you know, as well. So I have some numbers here that I really had to gather, and I will have to look at my notes. Like for instance, I was checking that like premium property prices in Ericeira, they have increased by an average of 75% in the last 5 years and 135% in the past 10 years. This is higher than the average price increase for all the property types in Ericeira, which are 65% and 100% respectively. This shows you a little bit that, you know, Portugal, we have a really big lack of high-end real estate and things that, as I was describing, great design, great people behind it, nice thoughts, and you know, so I believe this trend will continue, you know. And it is said that, you know, all these places, they all have these limited geographical situations, you know. So as you were there, you were saying, you know, you spent some time in Ribeira de Ilhas. Ribeira de Ilhas is nice, but you know, the places around there, they have their limited capacity, and the local government, they will only let certain type of construction be built on those plots that we still available. So I'm really bullish on Ericeira, on its future. We know it is happening, and it'll be amazing to see in the next 10 years how these places roll out. Not in terms of the construction capacity, the amount, but I think the quality of the projects that are coming out there, you know, will be the huge difference, you know. So we will see these well integrated in the nature, and this is what I think Ericeira deserves, is these new projects that are coming up, and continue to see how this rolls out in the next 10 years. And I'm absolutely sure, you know, we will have, you know, for these prime areas, I know again, at least 75% in the next 5 years and 135% in the next 10 years. I think this is will be easily achievable, because they will, you know, they will continue to be these amazing landscapes. And we can't never forget that also, you know, Lisbon as well as Ericeira, Lisbon is the only capital of Europe that has beaches, you know. Not many people realize this, but that's the truth. There's nowhere in Europe that you have a capital sitting on the beach, and Lisbon does. And this to say that a lot of people that work at TAP, they've moved to Ericeira because it's actually much shorter the distance to get to. So like from Ericeira to the airport, it'll take you like 30 minutes. So you're living in this amazing place. So imagine that you're living in London and you have planes coming over to Lisbon all the time. And in 30 minutes away, grab an Uber or rent a car and you're in this amazing place in Ericeira. So for sure, I see this continue of this evolution, and I'm really glad to be Portuguese and living here at this moment in time where we're seeing this transformation period.
That drive from the airport to Ericeira is one of my absolute favourites because it's normally leaving a wet and cold United Kingdom and arriving in Lisbon airport. 35 minutes later, I'm in Ericeira, and for the periods there, I was obviously working for Athena, and morning surfs, evening surfs, that lifestyle, it was the first time, and I've travelled and worked and moved around quite a lot with my career. It was the first time where I found like it was a home away from home, but it gave me so much more than I ever could have expected. So I'm a huge advocate for it, and I think that what you're talking about in terms of there's going to be an increasing number of development, but that development is going to be restricted to quality over quantity, I think is really key, because you want to preserve the culture that's there today, because it's such a fantastic place to be, and the last thing it needs is a mass influx of new buildings, but instead the quality of the buildings is really key. And I think a lot of that has probably come due to an increase in popularity of surfing and the World Surf Reserve itself. Those two things have created a really interesting supply and demand curve for Ericeira. And this I actually got from an article that Hita wrote for the Portugal News back in February. So if Hita's out there, thank you for helping supply us for the podcast. But she wrote that Ericeira saw a 150% increase in rental activity when comparing winter 2018 with winter 2021. The simple mechanics of low supply and increasing demand meant that rent increases followed. The profitability of rental properties in Ericeira during the surf season increased by a staggering 90% across the same period. So that's pre and post COVID, and the effect that it's had in terms of people seeking to live a more probably balanced lifestyle of not just being in metropolitan cities. And I didn't know that fact about Lisbon being the only capital in Europe on the coast. And it speaks to a lot of sense to the sort of culture that Portugal has. I think for me, one of the things I found living in Ericeira and doing that drive, and this is the same for the entire coast of Portugal, but you live on the edge of nature. That ocean is a different world. It's not somewhere we're supposed to be. It's not somewhere we're supposed to inhabit. It is a vast, big example of Mother Nature, and it's one of the most beautiful things on Earth, in my opinion. And watching the sunset over every evening gives a certain peace and tranquility and serenity to life that you cannot get from other places that don't have that sort of access to something as natural as the Atlantic Ocean. It's so, and especially if you get in the water in the evenings, and I had many sessions in the evening surfing in Ericeira where you don't really care if you catch a wave, where you're just bobbing on a board, you're watching the light refract as the sun sets over the horizon, and you just feel like you don't want for anything in the world. And it is just an exceptionally beautiful place. And I think that as time goes on and these sort of developments coming in place, and the World Surf Reserve, which essentially is a coalition that looks to protect the coastal communities from too much development happening, is going to create a really amazing, Ericeira is a really amazing space, but it's going to preserve that amazing space whilst providing limited options, but beautiful options like the villas that we still have at Ribeira Dias for people that are interested in that lifestyle. So I'm like you, I'm so very excited about the future of Ericeira, and sitting here talking to you about it now, I am in Norfolk in the United Kingdom. It's a wonderful, beautiful place. There's no waves and there's no sunset over the horizon in the evening though, so I very much look forward to getting back to that spot. Whilst we're talking about nature and a lifestyle of coexisting between property and how property and nature, coexist in how we look at property. Madeira is our second destination that we're going to talk about as up and coming. And we've both been there this year. I don't know if you'd been there before. It was the first time that I'd been there, and I went very open-minded. I didn't really know what to expect, and it was for sure the most striking island that I've ever been on. And yeah, we went, I think we spent 5 or 6 days traveling around. I've got a map here because I won't remember all of the names and the destinations, but I'll talk through where we went and went shortly. But it was somewhere that is new to Athena in terms of us moving our operations there. Maybe we can start, or you can start by telling us whose idea was Madeira. Why did we think that Madeira was the place to go and visit? And when you got there, or before you got there, what was it that attracted you to Madeira as technically an archipelago, but the main island of Madeira? What was it that drew you there and thought this is the next destination for Athena advisors to be?
I was really the one inside, that I led the movement to Madeira. I really believe, and I spoke to the team. I spoke with our internal team, with Natalia and our other destination advisors. And I think Madeira has gotten this incredible traction. I start hearing a lot of my clients from the US, you should come to Lisbon, come and visit. Yeah, Dave, what about Madeira? So I also, what drives me sometimes is always knowing the beauty of these places. But then when I start hearing a lot of people from our destinations, which we sell, like we do from the United States, asking me about certain destinations, I know this will pick up as well. So Madeira, and why does it pick up? Because Madeira, it's an amazing island. It's really beautiful. It has its own peculiar culture. It's one of the most mint and clean places I've been, So everything is really well kept. Not just in the capital, in Funchal. Anywhere you go in the island, you see these places, and you've probably noticed that they are so well kept, and the government invests so much in keeping this well done, because they have been receiving tourists for decades and decades. The people from the UK, they love this, and you have great hotels like the Resides, where 007, there are parts of the movie that was shot there. So it's this island that it's not only beautiful, but it's really well kept and maintained. And I think this also helps to be Madeira such a special place. It's also the weather, me being Portuguese, I have been there before also, and usually I go a lot of times, after Christmas, the 26th, I grab the plane and I'm gonna spend the New Year's Eve, come back the 2nd and the 3rd. And and then when I'm there, I always jump in the ocean. I go for a swim. The weather, it's always much warmer than in Lisbon, always. And I think it's one of the most beautiful fireworks event in the world. I lived, 17 years in São Paulo. I've been many times in Rio and see the Copacabanas fireworks, which are all really well known. But Madeira, it's amazing because they spread the fireworks all around the island. And in Brazil, in Rio, you see it very concentrated in one beach area, and it's great, it's amazing. But in the island, it comes from 130, it goes 360 degrees. They spread around different places in the island, and you're there and you're sensing, all the fireworks are coming from different locations. So, but Madeira, it's special because people are really nice. The food is excellent. Things are still really, really inexpensive. And now we have a lot of these digital nomads also coming in, and they're coming and they're staying there for 3 to 4 months. A lot of the waves there, the surfing spots, have also gotten more notoriety lately. And even people that work here in our building, they go 2 or 3 times a year, they go to surf in Madeira. So this is how special the place always is. They grab a plane and they go for Madeira for some time. So, and we started, I really drive this because I saw it was a great opportunity. And but we really wanted to partner up with the best, and we focused on working with one developer. And this is developer that he does the best projects, the best construction, the best construction I've seen from all of Portugal. Here in Portugal, you don't see these type of finishes and these type of detail oriented people as we've been seeing in this project that we see in Ericeira. So it's a destination that also the tourism there, it continues to evolve really nicely, really nice food, excellent weather, really special people. Everybody speaks English. So yes, I believe it's a destination that will continue to grow. And apart from this, nature-wise, Neil, I think you were very fortunate because you got to see from your videos places that I've never been before, and I'm a little bit jealous of you, to tell you the truth, you know. So yeah, maybe you could describe me a little bit, because I'm really fond of Azores as well, and to be there immersed in the nature. But I haven't done that much that in Madeira. But after seeing your videos, you know, it really sparked my interest to immerse in nature in Madeira. So can you also tell me a little bit how was it for you as an experience?
I think there was one bit in particular. There's two bits in particular. I'll talk a little bit about the route we took and a bit of the geography of the island, because it is really spectacular. It's also known as the Pearl of the Atlantic, and it really is a pearl. And I think the two destinations that I think are really worth talking about first is Pico de Herrero, which is the hiking in the center of the island. It has some of the best 1-day and 2-day hikes in the world, and you get up to the top and you see jagged peaks and valleys and caverns all around you. It is a really stunning destination. Then you have to frame in your mind that you are looking to the north, the south, the east and the west, and you see Atlantic Ocean all around you. It's so unusual, and I've been to quite a few islands before. I'm a big lover of islands, and I've never been somewhere quite like that, especially to watch the sunrise. So I think it was on maybe the first day or the second day, only a 35-minute drive from Funchal up through the mountains, and you take this winding, twisting, hairpin road all the way up to the top, and it's quite a pilgrimage for people that go to Madeira to go up and watch the sunrise together. And we got up there, and there was the three of us, but it wasn't just the three of us that had made the trip. There was probably maybe shy of 100 people, near around 100, which sounds like a lot, but you are also, when you see and share an experience of nature of that profound beauty, it really elevates the experience to know that people, you know, you could see couples and families and children and grandparents, and they'd all come up and made this trip to see the sunrise. And it was one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful sunrise I'd ever seen, because it breaks across the clouds. And as soon as it breaks across the clouds, the entire hue and colour and saturation of everything around you changes. And for anybody who's not been to Madeira, who plans to go, I would recommend that to be your very first stop.
Okay. Were you with a guide or something, or you guys were by yourself?
No, we didn't you don't need a guide. You can get a taxi up, or you can drive up. So the plan is, one of our Davide, I think he'd hurt himself playing football or something, so we weren't able to do the full hike. And the plan was and most people will go up, take the drive or a taxi, watch the sunrise, and then do the Pico to Pico. I can't remember the name of the second peak, but it's about a 7-hour hike. But whatever you do, when you arrive in Madeira, the best introduction to Madeira is the sunrise from Pico de Herrero. And after doing that, we circled the island, and we were there for 5 days. You could do it in 3 if you wished. It's a small island. I think it is, what's the distance of it here? It's 35 miles long by 13 miles wide, so it's not very big, but the roads themselves are back and forth. They're mountainous roads, and the coastal road is just spectacular. So it's very also split north to south. The south is much more populated than the north is far more wild, and the weather is much more wild on that side as well. In terms of Madeira, the type of person you think listening who might be interested in purchasing out there, and maybe I know you've already talked a little bit about the quality of the finishes out there. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about the actual projects that we have. But yeah, it'd be good to speak, because it is such a different destination. It is, I don't know how far from Portugal's mainland. I know it's closer to Africa than it is to Europe. So it's an unusual destination for people to potentially consider investing in. So who do you anticipate will be the people listening that will be interested in purchasing in Madeira?
So I believe, you know, there is also a big community of immigrants that went to South Africa from Madeira, and now these people have done well, and a lot of them, you know, they're coming back to Madeira and buying properties. So for sure, one community that I see, it's people from South Africa that are a little bit now returning to their origins and wanting to be closer to their families, which they haven't for the past years. So definitely the community in South Africa, I think it's one of them. Traditionally, people from the United Kingdom have spent a lot of time in Madeira. They've purchased this property there. They own property there. So definitely the UK market is big. And the new kid on the block and the one that's growing at a rapid pace, it's really the Americans. The Americans have discovered Portugal, just not Madeira, but all of Portugal, you know, in the very recent years, you know. So in the past, we've seen in the past, I don't know, 3-4 years, year to year, they're growing. American clients that are buying properties in Portugal, in Madeira, we've seen that growth, that steady growth, you know, moving forward. Because Portugal, also, you know, it's nowadays it's much more beautiful than it was 10 years ago, because we've changed, you know, our rent laws. So it has all the buildings have been recovered. We've won the Oscar Award for tourism, you know, 3 and 4 times in a row. So it's made this really special. People think I'm a little bit silly, but I also think that there was, in my opinion, some Madonna effect, because, you know, Madonna lived here for a while, and she was totally publishing a lot of times her lifestyle here in Portugal, riding her horses in Comporta. She was singing in bars where no one bothered her. And actually, I think she just did a concert in Lisbon like 1 or 2 days ago, and she was singing Cesária Évora in Portuguese. I mean, she got so passionate by this singer from Cape Verde, one of our ex-colonies, that she was singing Cesária Évora in Portuguese during the concert. So, you know, she has so many followers, and like people like, Portugal, what is Portugal? You know, so I know that the US, they were very, you know, always hearing about Spain, and you know, they also like to come to France, but I know they're now like, whoa, what is this? You know, what is this? Is Portugal? You know, let's go and check it out. And they're coming over and they're falling in love. They're falling in love because just Madeira as well as Lisbon have these, you know, this like, especially for Californians, there's so much of a cultural, their visual identity with and the weather wise compares that they come over there in Europe. They're very safe. You know, Madeira is super safe. You can stop your car. You leave your keys inside of the car. You know, these islands are safe. Nothing really happens there. So yes, the places that are growing, South Africans, UKs, people from the UK, and also American clients.
We met talking about the safety of the place and the culture of people there. They're very proud people. And I think that when you talk about the fireworks display, for example, for a tiny little island to have, and it's a Guinness World Record.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it was in 2006 they broke it. Some people now, I think that might be a controversial statement. I hope not to be picked up on. But it's to be such a small island and to have such an ostentatious display, it says how proud they are of this island, because it is a very much look at us place. And we met somebody on the main historical streets the second or third night, and he was a very friendly, very informative, very passionate individual. But he said something that really struck me, that was, I was born in paradise, I live in paradise, and I hope one day to die in paradise. And I just thought it was such a beautiful way to talk about where you live. And this is somebody he was born on the street. He's probably in his 60s, born, raised, lived there, very rarely travels off the island. And I think for some people would look at that and be like, God, was it 35 miles long by 13 miles wide? How can you spend your entire life somewhere so small? But it's actually, when you get there, and especially for the people that are born and raised there, you don't want for anything else. Why bother going anywhere else? And I think when anybody who's interested in property there, interested in having a rental property there or a second home there, I think when they go to look to see and they start to meet these people, they realize that attitude that man had is something that can be adopted by anybody. Because when you're there, you don't think about what's going on in the mainland. You don't think about what's going on in the United States or in the UK. You're on the island. And island life, as cliche as it sounds, is a cliche for a reason. Because when you're on island life, you're on island time, you don't want for much more, and that can create a genuine, authentic happiness, which I think everybody that I travelled with through that trip felt the same as well by the end of it. And in turn, there's a company called the World Travel Awards, which is a reputable company, and every year it goes and it creates awards for islands, for coastal regions, for mountains, and so on and so forth. And it would be one of the most reputable in the world. Madeira, for 8 years in a row, 8 years, has won the world's leading island destination. And if you think about the islands out there, to beat off every island in the world 8 years in a row, if you agree or disagree with their decision, these are the people that are traveling through these islands and seeing it, and they've come to this conclusion. And just to put that into context, and you say it's the best island in the world, we have islands that spring to mind, but these were the nominees for 2022 that Madeira beat: Atituca in the Cook Islands, Ambergris Caye in Belize, Bali, Indonesia, Barbados, Bora Bora, Cozumel, Crete in Greece, Fiji, Hawaii, Holbox Island, Mexico, Jamaica, the Maldives, Majorca, Mauritius, St. Lucia, Sardinia, the Seychelles, Surigao, Philippines, Sicily, Italy, Turks and Caicos, and Zanzibar in Tanzania. And that's 1 year's list. And Madeira topped that list for the World Travel Awards, and it's topped that list 8 years in a row. So I think in terms of talking about Madeira, if you're not already convinced by what David and I have discussed, then go and have a look at the World Travel Awards website and go and look at the last 8 years and see how well Madeira has done against, island destinations that are always romantic, beautiful, enigmatic places that people frequent all across the world all year round. And Madeira is not just nominated 8 years in a row, but has won 8 years in a row, which is quite phenomenal. So on that, unless there's anything else you want to add to Madeira.
No, I think we've said a lot. Just that property continues to rise there. Just for the past 10 years. Here I have to check my cheat sheet. As always, it has risen 70%. So again, we see this rise, and we're confident that with all these floods, I think a movement that is happening, and I think it will be a trend. It's more and more people will work. These nomads will be something that what an experience it is. To be able to go to this island and live 3-4 months at a time, get to know the culture, work from there. Work your 6-7 hours a day, and then explore, get to know the people, get to know the local guy that pours you the glass of wine, understanding him, understanding his background. So in Madeira, you have this opportunity. I believe that this trend of people almost not owning a house, but be like every semester working in a different place. I believe this is a little bit the future, and as you've mentioned, all these awards, definitely Madeira is one of these destinations that people will want to come and to work from there for these extended periods of time.
And now on to Tavira in the Algarve.
Tavira, it's amazing. Before you make your introduction, let me just tell you that this is where I would buy my second house.
Oh, okay. Well, it's quite a claim. We've just talked about 2 beautiful destinations, and that's just 2 of many in Portugal. And the third is where you would buy your second house. So I'm just open field. Tell me about Tavira. Tell it to me. Why should anybody listening, myself included, be interested in this place?
So, first of all, Tavira, it's in the Algarve, okay? Algarve, it's where the weather is best all year round in Portugal. It has a peculiarity that in the middle you have the capital of the Algarve, which is Faro, which it's just become public that there'll be a direct flight from the US directly to Faro. So there's this center part, and then from Faro to Sagres, it's really beautiful, but a lot more touristic-y and a bit windy, in my opinion. Sagres is very windy, and as you get closer and closer to Faro, it starts losing that Atlantic northern constant winds. Then you get from Faro all the way to the border of Spain. For me, this is one of the most beautiful areas inside of Portugal. I have 2. I have this area, and also from Sagres all the way to Aljur. It's really beautiful. But at this time of my life, it's a little bit windy, but it has great surfing. But my wife and I, if we buy a place, it would really be from Faro to the border of Spain. And the center of this, the most charming city of these all, it's really Tavira. Tavira has this, this old part of town that it's just like you're walking here in the most charming old places in Lisbon, because it's really, it has been called also the Venice of Lisbon, because it has these channels that come and they sit on top of Tavira, and you can get on these boats and they'll take you to the beach. It's like a little 5-minute ride. And most of all, in all of Portugal, from Tavira, this place from Faro to the border in Tavira, you have warm nights. So it's really exciting for you to go out at night, have dinner, and you can go on your t-shirt. So my wife is really fond of warm evenings, and so am I, and that's why I've elected this place by its temperature. And also in this region, the tourism is very low. There are very few tourists. You still have many empty beaches all year round. So I've just recently sold a small boutique hotel very close to Tavira. To actually, it was a small hotel, 6-room, but I've sold it to an American couple as them to be there almost a big part of the year. And they've even invited me to come over, and Inez and I have come over and spent some time there with them. And it's amazing because you have the ocean. It's more Mediterranean Sea. There are very little waves. You have warm weather, and then you have, I don't know how you say it in English. It's the Ria Formosa, which is this line of land that it's between. Before you get to the ocean, it's like a mixture of the river and the ocean.
Yeah, it's what would wrap around an estuary, but my vocabulary is going to let you down on that one. But I understand what it is you're talking about, yes.
This Ria, the Ria Formosa, it also extends to the majority of this location, what I'm telling you, between Faro and the border of Spain, which is there are a lot of oysters that are grown there. There's a lot of fishing, and then you have further away these little islands. These islands, and some of them are peninsulas, which you only can access by boat, and they're empty. And they're the southernmost part of Portugal, and they are these empty beaches all year round. So this is, I love the beach. I love these beach destinations. I love warm nights, and the Tavira itself, it's a beautiful little village. All of these coming from fishermen, all these nice restaurants only that serve you really grilled fish that they've just bought in. You have this place called Castela Velha, which you have an amazing view of the Ria from this church side. They open up a restaurant that it's this size, but the whole patio in front of the church, they put in their chairs and they just serve you oysters, fresh shrimp, beer and wine, and that's all, and then you have lines of people waiting to sit there, and you go there and see the sunset from there, and it's a one of a kind experience. Everybody that I take there just falls in love with the place, and really wants to buy something there. And Tavira, I might buy there. So for me to sell it and to tell you about it, or to go and show you, more than describing it in words, I really love people to come with me and experience it, and I share together in these trips that we do together. Yes, so Tavira for me, it's where whenever I get a chance, I would love to have a second house there.
It's very close to the Spanish border. Would you say that as you get close to that Spanish border, culturally, is it different? Do you find the people there are a little bit different than what you'd find in the rest of the Algarve? I've not spent too much time down that way myself.
No, I think it's not that much different, but the thing is, it has not been, there are regions of the Algarve that can be a little bit heavy in terms of tourism, and this is not. So this is what attracts me. It's that it's really densely populated by tourists, and there's a lot of authentic stuff going on, and this is where my passion is. So I love these places. There's this Praia Verde where My wife's family, they spent a week together every year there in the month of July, and I've been going there for the past 6-7 years, and it's just the families there. You have these amazing restaurants. It's only mostly are Portuguese people sitting on these beaches still. So it's this destination, as I said, that Athena is promoting, but it's still very much Portuguese people, not many people, and it's an amazing place. You have to go there. You have whenever you come next time, we'll go. Natalia, will you come with us? Yeah, let's make a trip down there next time you're here.
I'm just waiting for my invitation. I'm ready for it. Would you say then Tavira is somewhere, like where do you see it going in the next 10 years? Because looking at these destinations we're talking about with Ericeira, it's fairly well known. Madeira has been for a long time, but it's starting to come back up to the forefront. Tavira is a much smaller destination and much lesser known. And one of the advantages of it, you're saying, is that it's very quiet, and that offers so much in terms of lifestyle as well. Do you anticipate that over the next 10 years it will become somewhere that will become increasingly popular, which can be advantageous to terms of rental yields and so on, but then might lose one of its key defining features of being quiet? Or do you anticipate it's somewhere that's always going to be a little bit of the quieter relative of the main Algarve destination, and therefore it's more of a second home destination where people might want to just go and disappear for a little while?
Yeah, I see that. I think this is still a little hidden gem, and it should be like this for the next 5 to 10 years. One of the things in Portugal is that it's really, really hard to develop. For you to get a license and to buy a plot of land until you have the house ready, it can take you, at least 5 years. It'll take 2 to 3 years in the city hall, and then plus all this amount to promote and do the construction, finalize. So these cycles are 5-year cycles. And Tavira, we have these really nice French developers that have been looking at this for the past 7 and 8 years, and they're going to come up with amazing projects in central Tavira, in this little heart of the city that I'm describing to you about. So I see it as this place that it's going to develop slowly but steadily. There is a lot of conservation, because on top of this ria there's a lot of natural the natural habitat that needs to be conserved. So this will continue to be authentic. These places, these little islands that I tell you, a lot of them, they don't have the bars or the restaurants, which really sometimes attracts a lot of the tourists. So I think they'll continue to be these little small gems to be discovered places for the next 5 or 10 years. And the potential of the properties to buy a property there, and there'll be properties that are, there is a big demand for them because there are little quantity of them. And in the central part of Tavira, to be able to own a property there, I think it's like a trophy asset. It's these things that you'll have it in your portfolio with a constant rents, and it can be an amazing place for you to spend some time with your family.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the project that we have down there at the moment?
Surely, yes, we will launch very soon. These houses integrated in the middle of the city. We have another project which is maybe where I would buy. It's called Casas do Sal, which is right on top of this ria that I'm telling you about. So it's a unique property, an amazing riverfront views. It's this from this well-known architect, Miguel Saraiva. He did an excellent job there, and this is an amazing place. So we have the two options. We would have a place right on top of the ria, straight ocean view in front of you, and then we'll have the classic houses and apartments inside of central Tavira, and both of them are. You could be, and I have a little bit of both. I like to be in this city center where I can open my door, walk everywhere, go and buy the bread, go to the pharmacy, walk everywhere, and still be like, a 2 or 3 minute away from the beach. But I also like to be on top of a little bit less dense place, and I need to maybe get my car to go and buy bread, but I'm sitting in it a little more individually. So I'm a little bit in between this commodity of being in the city center and exploring, be more standalone with this ocean's view. But we have properties for both tastes. Whatever is your taste, whatever you feel better, we have a property for you.
I think it's worth also noting, I'm just looking at it on a map, it's only an hour and 45 as well from Sevilla, as the biggest city in the destination. It's closer than it is to Lisbon. And Sevilla, if anybody who hasn't been, is, I think, one of my favourite cities in Europe alongside Lisbon. And yeah, it just seems to hold a very special destination in terms of its accessibility, in terms of its weather, in terms of its quietness as well. So
the light, I love Sevilla. The light, the sun, the lights there. It's a base really special, And and the thing you said, and from Lisbon, Tavira, it's 2 hours a little, but it's everything in freeways. The access is really good. Then you have Faro Airport, which will be less than 30 minutes away or less from Tavira. So yeah, this access part and transportation are also very good, and the closeness to Sevilla. And I sometimes when I'm there, I just go on shopping in Sevilla. There is this supermarket there that now it's opening in Portugal called Mercadona, and there are 2-3 projects from their own products that I love. And I when I'm there, I go to 2 or 3 times in a week. I go there and shop, so it's so convenient. They have these great wines that I go and buy there, and other stuff.
that could be our next topic for the podcast, a wine tour of Portugal. I would love to do a wine tour of Portugal. It's a fantastic place. For, again, anybody who hasn't tried Portuguese wine, it's kind of always been lesser known than some of the key old world regions, but the Portuguese wine is phenomenal.
Oh, for sure. And the price of it, it's still so inexpensive because a lot of people don't know that, don't have that connoisseur, but it's growing. It's growing, the consumption of the Portuguese wines, and it's super accessible, and they're great wines, especially the Douro wines. For me, they're my favorite, reds and whites.
I think Vinho Verde. Do I pronounce that properly? Vinho Verde.
Yeah.
Vinho Verde. Yeah. Is my favorite, but the Douro wine also, that's increasingly popular out of all of them in the UK, I think. But maybe we can do it, a podcast that's a tour of Portugal via the wine regions could be quite interesting. But for today, thank you so much.
Thank you, Neil. It was great chatting with you as always.
Do you have any ideas for what you would like to chat about next? Well, one thing I realised we haven't done is talk too much about Lisbon or Porto, which are the two main cities of Portugal, and Lisbon in particular is somewhere that we've been, the office, you're in Lisbon right now. Could be an interesting place to talk about. But do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think maybe we could do, in the future, we could do a specific project on a podcast on a specific project. We pick a project to push forward, and we show the renderings, we talk about the inside, the details, the architecture, the construction company. We get a little more involved on one or two maybe specific projects, and we get it from there.
I think for me, I've always been really interested in the entire journey, and maybe there's a project out there that's not, one that's completed, but also one that's just starting. And over the course of that construction phase, we can tell the narrative of it over a 2-year time period, something like this. I think it'd be really interesting to follow, really interesting to understand the inner workings of how Athena operates, but also how these projects actually come to be, because we sell a lot of new builds that aren't yet in the ground, essentially just plots in the ground, and we have to try and articulate what that will end up being through CGIs, through our communication of it. And I think to be able to tell the story as one goes along would be really interesting for people.
Sure.
Thank you so much, David Moore George.
It was a pleasure chatting with you as always, and look forward for our next podcast. Thank you and all our marketing team that makes this happen. Thank you, guys.